Firing up appropriately.
Okay.
It's pinned. Okay, now we are. You are recording. Be sure to let everyone know that they are being recorded. So there you have it. Well, everybody, I want to welcome you all and happy Friday. This is going to be a wonderful way to end a week and listen to Dr. DeArth-Pendley talk to us about stress management and strategies during uncertain times. With that being said, I will just say on Monday, I'm going to post out some other opportunities for us to get together and do faculty development learning things. So keep your eye out for that Monday memo. Also, what I'm trying to do is at the beginning of every month, within that memo, notify faculty members of all these new features that they're throwing at us. So hopefully if I can curate that, that will come out. If not, it'll be during week 2. With that being said, welcome, Gina, and thank you for taking your time
Oh,
today to help us.
okay. Well, thank you. And thank you to everybody who's here today. I've really enjoyed putting this presentation together. And I know Ellen and I talked about this last semester, and we had thought maybe we would do something during a faculty development week, but then we thought, no, a lunch and learn would be really nice. And then we can just focus on this for giving you some strategies. So in some ways, it's actually, when I thought about it, I thought it's not just about the students, but it's also for faculty. So I'm going to start off talking about some surveys that have come out that involve students to see what their perceptions were of the pandemic and how that's affected their studies and their mental health. And I'll give you a few resources too that where you can find mental health support. But then I'm going to focus a lot on just how faculty can take care of themselves. So there's quite a bit that I've got in this presentation that's really geared towards faculty. So the first thing I was going to share is a 2020 College Student Mental Health Survey that was conducted by the American Campus Committee, our communities, and they surveyed over 12,000 students that range from freshmen to graduate students from 65 different colleges in the United States. And overall, what they found in terms of how these students have responded to COVID is that the global pandemic has been very stressful. The stress is real. They have worried not only for themselves, but for their friends and family. There's like a 52% were worried that they may have been exposed. So it is something that is present on their minds. But what's really important about this survey is that 93% of the students that were surveyed agreed that mental health is an important component of their overall health and well-being. And I can attest to seeing this same attitude in counseling services. I'm so impressed by students who seek help on their own, or they even tell other students that they'll recommend that they come to see me or that they seek counseling. There's just a really, really positive attitude towards counseling. And so this survey too, I thought was good to show that it's across the country. And I don't know if it's because they included graduate students, but it seems like there's been a lot of good work being done to destigmatize getting counseling, and it seems that they're very receptive. So about 66% said that COVID has faced them to really take or forced them to really take a closer look at their mental health. So they may have thought about it a little bit before, but now it's being taken more seriously. What we're also finding is that social connection is so important. In this survey, they said 84% said that socializing with friends is what they miss the most. And I think that tells us something too, as far as things that we may even be able to do, even if it's virtual, but continuing to keep that social connection there. Even having these lunch and learns, it's virtual, but we're still connecting, and it's just very important. A lot will use Snapchat or text. Most use text to connect, which is good about the signal vine that we have. I think that gives a little bit more support to why that may be very effective in reaching students. since they use texting more so than other social media platforms. Interestingly, only 28% of the students surveyed knew where to find help when they needed mental health counseling. So this is another reason why it's so important that, and it's very good that we have counseling services here for students. It's easy to find me. It's easy. We don't have a big campus, so it is sad when you think of such a high percentage of students saying that they recognize the need for positive mental health, but some don't know where to find the help. So, but they do check with each other. So they seem to be very positive with checking in with their friends and family and asking if they're doing okay or how they're feeling, even psychologically. So overall, this survey shows some really good things as far as the search for help and knowing that mental health is just as important as physical health. These are just a list from the survey as well, some of the top ranking activities that students said help them maintain optimum mental wellness. So exercising, focusing on the positives. This is something that I do a lot with students when they come in for counseling, is that we reframe situations and try to find the positive. And I'll talk a little bit more about cognitive reframing in a minute, but it's good to see that 68% said that's something that really helps them feel better too. Practicing mindfulness, getting creative, doing kind things for each other, and seeking inspiration to learn something new, which is great for us as professors to hear that this is something that students actually see as being helpful in terms of feeling better. Also, posture, keeping their heads up, keeping a straight posture. It helps us breathe better. And there have been studies that have shown it. If I were to tell all of you to just keep your head down and your shoulders turned in and maintain that posture through the morning, you'll feel more depressed by the afternoon. If you put your shoulders back, your head up, and you walk straight, even if you're feeling kind of sad, you'll feel better. Your mood will improve. So even these behavioral strategies can be very effective. Another study that's come out about students' reactions to COVID, it was done by Texas A&M, and these students also said that they had increased stress and anxiety, also fear that they or their relatives or friends could be affected by COVID. So quite a few negative impacts were reported as being experienced by students, including problems concentrating, problems with sleeping, not having as many social interactions, and then worried about how they're doing on their schoolwork and their academic performance. So these are things to keep in mind too. I'm sure that our students also have these concerns. I hear about them in counseling too. Stress can hurt our ability to concentrate and even to remember, because stress, especially when we've got fear combined, is processed in the amygdala. Within the brain, the amygdala sits right next to the hippocampus, which is our memory store. So if the amygdala is overactive, it very easily can block memories. It can block recall. So there are strategies that I teach students to help them distract their mind from maybe a test question that they're worried about, that they can't remember the answer to because now they're getting more and more worried. There are some distraction type of techniques that they can do in class that will help relieve that stress from the amygdala so that maybe those memories can come forward. But we also see stress in general can cause those problems. So I think it's important to share some of those things with students, just so that you all are aware in your classroom that you may see some students who are struggling with concentrating, or maybe more anxiety than they had in the previous semester. And you can always refer them to counseling services. If they want to see someone other than me, I have a list of referrals too I can give them. So stress affects us all. And sometimes stress can motivate us. Sometimes it's not terrible, but it can differ. So we have stress throughout the day in the routine tasks that we do, but then it can also be emotional, which is a little more distressing. And it can move all the way up to traumatic stress. So if we feel threatened, stress signals are going to prepare us for the fight or flight. The more threatened we feel. So that also is going to kick in more physiological functions that are aimed at survival responses. Our heart rate can increase, our blood pressure can go up. We may breathe faster, maybe not get as good of a deep breath. We could perspire more. When it's non-threatening, it can be stimulating. It could motivate us, but it definitely can cause harm um, when it's unexpected or unwanted. Also, even if stress is not that great, but it lasts a long time, that can cause harm too. We've been under a great deal of stress for a long time, so you can imagine the negative impacts of that. Um, when we experience long-term stress, other things can become compromised, particularly our immune system. So I was talking to my husband about this earlier today. I said, I've been saying this for a while now that it's so important not to get too stressed by other things. We can get pulled into the news, or we could get pulled into different dynamics that are going on, and we already have the stress from COVID. So if we get too stressed and it goes on for too long, we really can see our immune systems being impacted negatively, which we don't want to happen. So keep these things in mind. Sometimes it's good to pull away from certain interactions, or maybe even taking a break from the news or social media if you start to feel your stress level going up, because it can do some real damage to your immune system, your digestive tracts, cardiovascular systems, and sleep. It also can cause more emotional disturbances like sadness and depression, or even anger. So over time, if this continues, we may even see more long-term serious health implications. So higher blood pressure, diabetes, and other illnesses. Okay. This is another study from the Yale Child Study Center, and I wanted to put this quote in here. It gets also at the amygdala in our brain and how that interacts with our prefrontal cortex. But this is from Dr. Marins. He said that when people feel threatened or their lives are altered in major unwanted and anticipated ways, communication between the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive center of the brain, and the amygdala, which is the emotional processing center, may be disrupted. This leads to the production of stress hormones that can cause distress in the body as well as the mind, that may include increased heart rate, changes in respiration, muscle tension, irritability, disruptions in sleep, appetite and concentration, and repetitive thoughts involving danger and helplessness. It's very serious. So letting ourselves get overwhelmed, we're taking so much on and not having sometimes to take a break or practice mindfulness, which I'm going to go through in a minute, can be very, very detrimental to our health. But thankfully, there are ways to manage stress. Watch your body, or listen, feel, start to really get in tune to what your body's telling you. If you start to have difficulty sleeping, or you feel you need more things to calm down or even pick you up, and your body's not working quite like it did, could be real warning signs. Stress levels too high. Be sure to tell your doctors about any problems that you're having. Exercise is fantastic because you're breathing and you're walking, you're moving, and you also can see wonderful things while you're out taking a walk, which could help you even have some mindfulness experiences. Anything relaxing is good too. Even scheduling a time that this is my relaxing time, and I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm not going to look at the computer. You can do this in your office as well. And I'm going to show you some things in a little bit of ways that you can really have some nice relaxful moments, even if it's just 15 minutes in your office. Be sure to learn how to say no and be okay with that. That's a tough one. We're, as teachers, and I know even as a mental health provider, as psychologists, as nurses, we are so willing to help. And sometimes it's very hard to say no. But remember, you say yes so much every day in the course of your profession that you're allowed to say no sometimes outside of work, right? And even during work. So decide how you have to do now and what can wait. And try to say no to new tasks if you start to feel like you're taking on too much. At the end of the day, instead of focusing on what you haven't done, reframe it and think about, what have I accomplished today? And it's amazing how that can just change just our mindset to think of all that we've done. And stay connected. Continue to stay connected with your friends and family. Okay. So I have a few resources here. If you have a student, and even if you yourself are feeling overwhelmed, of course, if you have an emergency, call 911. But we have an EAP program, an employee assistance program for faculty and staff who might want to have counseling. And you can talk to Trish Jones about that. She can get you set up with a counselor. For students, you can refer them to me, and I have my number there. There's also a few other resources I thought would be helpful. The Kentucky Psychological Association has a services locator where you can find psychologists who are licensed in all the different counties within the state. So you may have a student who's going home or maybe is doing remote synchronous learning and they need a counselor. They could go to the KPA site at that and find a psychologist in their area that they could check in with. And everyone is pretty much meeting by Zoom too, which really makes it nice because we can counsel in the evenings or weekends. You know, there are counselors that are open at all different times now, so it doesn't just have to be normal business hours. There's also a number there for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline and a crisis text line, which is great. You just text hello and you will get a crisis counselor who can text with you and help. National Institute of Mental Health also has a counselor resource that's national. So those are just some things for you to have some resources. Other stressors that can trigger things can be, like I said, it's not just COVID, but other things like even when finals start to approach and midterms, I usually get more students coming right after midterm. I have certain times I can see I get a more of a rush. It depends on even on the semester what's going on. There are breakups that people experience while they're in college, and they're planning more of their futures, and so breakups can be very meaningful during these years. So there are a lot of stressors that students could experience, or we could too. So these are just more symptoms to watch out for as possible warning signs. If you start to see a student that's acting differently than they have before, like if they seem sadder or more empty, if their work just doesn't seem to be up to par where it used to be, and there's nothing really interfering like sports or something that you know that's going on, but it just seems like they're just not present as much mentally or psychologically, it could be a sign. If they're more irritable or feelings of guilt, feeling worthless, other times it could just be being the opposite. It could be more fidgety than normal or talking faster than normal. They seem more on edge. If you notice difficulty concentrating, or they seem sleepy, they start falling asleep in class a lot. Maybe they're having trouble sleeping, or if you yourself feel these things. Definitely appetite or weight changes, and of course, anytime we have to take any suicidal threat seriously. That if you hear this, you can definitely send them to me. I have to seek help for them. You also can call security, and security will get a hold of me too. So those things you do want to take seriously, even if they say that they don't know that they do anything, still report it to me and to security. That way we can do a full assessment and make sure, do a risk assessment and suicide assessment. Also, sometimes people feel stress in more physical ways, not emotional ways, and people differ by cultures. So someone may say that they experience anxiety more with a headache than they do with a sense of nervousness. So just be mindful of those things too. So now that I've talked about the stress, I thought it would be good when we get on to some things that you can do to reduce it. And you will see or you'll even notice like it changes in some of the slides. Just if you take a moment and just look at the flower on this slide, and look for something that's not so obvious. You should look at the color, the changes in the color, the waves, the patterns. This is a way of practicing mindfulness, and it's very easy. I did this when we first got back together after the break. Pull up a beautiful picture of something and look for something you haven't seen before, just for a couple of minutes. And you'll notice your stress level starting to come down a bit. Here's another one. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is a mental state achieved by focusing your awareness on the present moment. You acknowledge and accept your feelings, your thoughts, your bodily sensations, and this is actually the therapeutic technique itself. So hopefully you got to look at the little kitty and maybe it brought a smile to your face, but it's just this moment. And this moment's okay. And there's some peace in that. So as you practice this more, there's a way of gaining a greater sense of peace. You'll have improved resilience. You'll have better stress management and even compassion for yourself and for other people. So this, we are finding more and more empirical support as being very, very helpful. And it's not meditation as in like and it could be meditation, but it's not necessarily meditation in like if you were doing like a Buddhist practice of meditation. When we're talking about mindfulness as cognitive psychologists, we mean really being aware of this moment and what's going on just in this moment. So it's not emptying your mind, but it's being aware of how you feel right now. Maybe, and if you pull something nice, what does that do to you? What's happening with your heart rate? What's happening with your emotions? Are you smiling? Are you feeling lighter? This is just being in just this moment, letting everything else go to the side for a while. So there are a lot of benefits of mindfulness. We have studies that have shown that even people who have practiced in short-term mindfulness programs who were getting flu vaccines had a better response to the flu vaccines. So they had significant increases in the antibody titers that to the vaccine if they had participated in the mindfulness group versus those who were not in the mindfulness group. So the conclusions of this study was that just a short program of mindfulness training can produce effects on the brain and also improve your immune function. And so it's something that at this time can be very, very helpful. Here are some other relaxation techniques too that you might want to use. Progressive muscle relaxation is very easy. I teach this to students. And I'll just do this quickly so you can see it. And you can just join. I can't really see anyone in your videos, but to simply see how it is, just make a fist with your hand and hold that for a while until you see your knuckles turning red. What I'm doing right now is I am activating my sympathetic nervous system. My blood pressure is going up, but I'm doing it. It's not doing it to me. I'm making it happen. And now I'm going to slowly, slowly release my hand out of that fist and pull my fingers out slowly. And now I'm activating my parasympathetic nervous system. So if I were to do this 3 or 4 times a day, and maybe 3 or 4 rotations, maybe I want to do this 3 times in a row and then just do it a few times through the day, I will be calmer because that parasympathetic nervous system is going to be active in its calming chemicals throughout the day. And this is very, very helpful. A lot of times students will tell me this is the thing that helps them, sometimes more than the breathing exercises. Because I even tell them, you could do this with your toes and nobody will know what you're doing. You just squeeze your toes just like we just did our hand. If you're in class, you're in the middle of a test, hold them and then release them slowly and do that a few times. And it helps you calm down. It can help you breathe a little bit better. And then you can refocus. So you can do progressive muscle relaxation with any muscle group. It could be, you could start with your hands and you could go to your shoulders, but just tensing and releasing is really what that's about. Autogenic training is concentrating more on physical sensations of warmth or heaviness or relaxation in different parts of your body. You could put something warm around you and just feel how that's different and really tune in. It's in some ways redirecting your mind so that you're focusing on something other than the stress. Deep breathing is, there's a lot of breathing exercises that you can do to help. One is called paced breathing. And with this one, you breathe in for fewer counts than you breathe out. So breathe in for like maybe 5 counts, hold it, and then breathe out for 7 counts. That will also activate your parasympathetic nervous system and help you become calmer. Guided imagery is using something that's pleasant, putting a pleasant image in your mind that could replace a negative or a stressful feeling. I had mentioned this on the tea time when Tracy had this over the summer. It's called the gate. And if you have a lot of issues or a lot of problems on your mind, instead of thinking of all the problems, imagine a beautiful, beautiful place. And just think of the most beautiful place you can think of. And that's your place. And in that place, there's a gate. And behind that gate are problems. And each morning you come and you look out at that gate and you decide, because you wouldn't have to let any of them through the gate, but you decide which one you want to spend some time with. And then you spend time with that problem and you really care about it and you sort things out for a while, but then you let it go back outside the gate. And then you can decide if you let another problem in or not. If a problem tries to jump over the gate, you tell it, I thought about you today. I'll think about you again tomorrow. And you let it back out in the gate. That this is your place. It's your special place. And that's a guided imagery exercise just to put you in a peaceful place. And it also gives you more control. And you choose which problems you want to think about now. Sound therapy is really fascinating, and where there's more evidence of this too also being very helpful. So I'm going to get to that in a little bit more, but sound therapy is using music or individual musical tones to feel more relaxed. So I'll show you some things with that in just a bit. So besides the relaxation strategies, there are also many behavioral strategies. Some people like to be a little more active. If you can try to maintain regular routines, whatever that might be, the more you can maintain that predictability and routine, the less stress your body will feel, unless your routines are very stressful. But if you can try to keep some type of predictability, you won't use as much energy as if things are very chaotic or unpredictable. Try to keep regular sleeping times and waking times as much as you can. Eat healthy. Do some physical activity. Even 30 minutes is helpful a day. Practice relaxation. Connect with community organizations if you can. I'm a member of the NAACP. We have virtual meetings every month. So a lot of community organizations, they're still meeting and they're still doing things, but they also are meeting by Zoom or Teams, and you can still be connected because it's very, very important. And the last one here on behavioral strategies is laugh. It's so important. It is so important to laugh. Dr. McClellan, she could tell you there's a researcher that was a cognitive behavioral researcher who developed a very serious illness, and he didn't know what to do. He felt pretty depressed about his prognosis, and he thought, well, I'm just going to go home and I'm going to watch Marx Brothers movies for the weekend because it just depresses me to think he just didn't feel that there was much he could do. So that's what he did, and he just laughed the weekend, and he thought this was great. He continued to do that, and his test results improved, and his condition improved. So laughing, it not only does it feel good, but you're breathing too. When you laugh, you're getting really good breaths in there, and your body is more alive and alert. So try to find something that can make you smile and laugh. Other things that are really good behaviorally are trying to avoid any excess alcohol, because that's also a depressant, and it can produce more sadness too, even maybe a couple days after drinking. So you may feel like you need another drink, and it can set up a difficult pattern. So just be careful. Use it in moderation. It may even affect your immune responses if you have too much. Learn something new. Pick up a language or something you've always wanted to learn. Do that now. It's a great way to relieve stress and to distract your mind from the stress. Playing music, if you play an instrument, or listening to it. Micro moments I've talked about. Prayer, yoga, meditation, deep breathing, all of these things are very helpful. Anything that you find pleasurable or happy, keep doing it. Do what works and do more of it. Take short breaks. And I've said this earlier, limit distractions and anything that is more stressful than you really need to attend to. So social media starts getting out of hand, or the news, turn it off. Turn it off and go to something that's pleasant. You can always come back to it, because trust me, they'll still be going on. So do something to keep, to distract you into something pleasant. Here are some cognitive strategies. I mentioned reframing. So here are some ways that you could reframe some of the things we probably all have heard people say who complain about, whether it's social distancing or wearing masks. So instead of saying my friends and I can't see each other, I'm going to reframe that into a more positive statement and say my friends and I are protecting each other. Okay, so it's the same thing, but now I have a different way of looking at it. Instead of saying I'm stuck at home, how about I'm safe at home? I don't have to worry about things getting to me. I'm safe. Instead of I've lost all my freedom, I've relinquished my freedom for a noble purpose. There's a reason for all of this. I miss the things I love. Could be changed. I'm increasing my gratitude for the things I love. Now things are more special. I never realized how special certain things were, and now I have the time to reflect on it. So cognitive reframing is another strategy that has incredible empirical support as being effective in treating depression and anxiety, even PTSD. Okay. Self-care has to come first. So align your expectations with reality. Often we fill our schedules with so much, and then we put ourselves in, or we try to find ourselves. But especially during times like this, your immune system, it has to be in tip-top shape. And that means your stress level has to be down, and you have to be in a more positive mood. So you have to have some times for yourself. Think of self-care first. You will be back to your efficiency too. I mean, everything comes to an end at some point, right? As far as like even with COVID, and we've got vaccines now that are rolling out, and we will be more and more productive and efficient again. But sometimes you really have to slow it down. Attend to the positive. Malcolm X's wife, Betty Shabazz, she told her children, find the joy and praise it. And her daughter wrote in her book that this was so remarkable for her mother to tell her the children, because when Malcolm X was assassinated, it was very difficult for Dr. Shabazz and her children. But she would always tell her kids, find the joy and praise it. So anything positive, even the smallest thing, even if it's watching a little ant pick up a little breadcrumb, and with all that's going on, still does that. It can be a positive thing. It can be amazing. So try to be more flexible too. Learn to let go some. It's going to be okay. Be less rigid. Sometimes when we get rigid, it just doesn't help. So even when we have problems to solve, the rigidity can cause more stress, and it gets in the way. There's some emotion-based strategies you can use too. So schedule a worry time. This is very helpful. Sometimes when we have lots of worries on our mind and we know we're going to worry, but worrying doesn't seem to really help, just say, you know what? 3 o'clock is my worry time. And from 3 to 4, that's what I'm going to do. And that's all I'm going to do. Whatever I've got on my plate from 3 to 4, that's when I'm going to think about it. And it's amazing how much more control you can feel when you just, even that, if you say, and throughout the day, if a worry comes in your mind, it's not 3 yet. I'm not going to think about it. If you can do that, anytime you can, it's very helpful. Journal your feelings. Go a little bit deeper, start a journal, or even talk with your best friends about some of the feelings you're having. This is building that social support too. So ask yourself, what am I truly feeling now? Because sometimes, given the situations that we are in, we may be afraid to really express how we really feel. And we push it aside. And sometimes we have to. But if we do it too often, that can build up into stress too. So it's important to be able to distinguish between a primary and a secondary emotion. Primary emotions are those basic emotions that we feel. It's usually the first reaction that you have to something is more likely to be a primary emotion. It's more genuine. But in society, sometimes we're taught not to express certain emotions. For example, men may be told that they shouldn't cry. Don't show that you're vulnerable. You've got to be tough. And so maybe when they feel vulnerable, they've learned now to go to a secondary emotion, which might be anger. But really, they're sad, right? Or maybe for women, maybe we're told that we can't really show any guilt, and maybe we have to show maybe we can't show anger. Maybe we feel angry and we're not allowed to speak up, and so we cry. And the crying or the sadness is a secondary emotion, but the primary emotion is the anger. In counseling, that's one of the things we work on. It's like, what are you really feeling? What is, if it's like an onion, you peel the onion away. What's really there? Because once we can work on that, that's where you can find resolution. So for secondary emotions, I think Yoda said it best. He said, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And this is just exactly what we can do sometimes. We move off into these other emotions and it becomes very complicated. So think about a situation. If you were really sad and you wanted closeness, if a person didn't understand that and instead they showed a secondary emotion like anger, frustration, that might push people away. And so they end up being even more distanced or they remain alone when really what they wanted was closeness. So the more we can really think about what's that primary emotion and work through that, it can help us have less stress. So one way to identify secondary emotions, if it's an emotion that seems to linger more, like you might first feel maybe you get hurt, maybe your feelings are hurt, but then there starts to become this anger that's a grudge or whatever, a resentment or something else that just seems to stay there, that's more likely a secondary emotion. And you want to get back to that first one and work with it a little bit more. So usually complex emotions are more likely secondary because they've been built up by different things. Lots of social strategies you can use too. And I think this is one that I wish I would see this done more. Instead of saying social distancing, why don't we just say it for what it is? It's physical distancing. It was amazing. You just change one word, how that makes a whole different feeling. People would probably understand more if I just have to keep a physical distance, but I still am going to be sociable and still going to have quality interactions with people. I may have to do it through Zoom or through Teams, or I may have to do it on the phone. I'm still going to be interacting socially. I just have to maintain this physical distance. So some things like this, if we can reframe it in our own minds, it can help us too. Laughing and smiling again, mandatory, right? Is so needed. And try to have more in-person conversations. Social media is okay, but limit it somewhat so that it's not just the texting or just reading things. Really interact. It's much better. Share your feelings and don't judge yourself. No matter how you're feeling, this is how you're processing stress, and other people may process it differently, and that's okay. One thing I wanted to make a point too is that, and it's really quite amazing to think that instead of being only focused on this being the pandemic that the whole world is facing, isn't it quite amazing that the whole world, it's probably the only time in my lifetime that I know the whole world is united in one concern? That's really fascinating. And I don't know of other times in history where you could say the whole world is united on one concern. And we're trying to overcome this, but there is there is some connection there. So everyone is experiencing some of the same feelings. Okay, this is one of my favorites, and if you've been around me much, you've probably heard me say hygge. Hygge. It's a Danish word, and it means cozy. Denmark and Norway have been called the happiest countries on earth for the last few years. I think Finland was the most recent one. And some people, some psychologists, some cognitive psychologists who have gone to Denmark said, you're in darkness half the year. How in the world are you the happiest country? And some Danes have said, it's hygge. We practice it every day. And what it is putting coziness in your day, even for like 15 minutes a day. So there's a way to do this. You can bring this into your office. You can, these are some things I don't know if you can see because I don't have a movable camera, but I've got some wax that you can burn, or the essential oils are right over here to have an aroma. I've got a little, I'll try to pull this out, but just bringing, if you can see this, it's just a little water fountain. It's like a little owl. And it's just really nice. You can turn it on when you want it or not. But just having some type of a sound that's calming or peaceful can be very, very helpful just in your office. Have a cup of hot chocolate. Or something, a tea, or something that's just pleasant, warm. I brought this is like a hygge blanket. I have these around in my house, but using texture, just having something, you could bring something smaller in your office or something, but just something with something you can just feel. You can rub your hands on it and just, sometimes come back from class and just feel something soft and just spend a moment with it to put you in a different place, something that's comforting. Soft lighting, or the little fairy lights, like little twinkling fairy lights. These are things that they don't cost much at all, but they really can change the environment. Reading a book just for enjoyment, just finding something just for fun, or bringing the outside in, bringing in plants, or like I had the fountain, little tabletop fountain, so you can hear water. So it's not all just office. These are all hygge ideas that are very helpful. Textures, like I mentioned. Indulge in some of your favorite pleasures regularly instead of it just being every so often. Try to find something more regularly that you can indulge in. Having some comfort food on hand, that could be one of those things that just every so often you or maybe more than so often you indulge in. Writing yourself a note on some pretty stationery. You're awesome. You're fantastic. It's going to be a great day, but putting it on some pretty stationery. There's something pleasant. Or playing soft music, or even having some comforting instruments. And so I'm going to talk about that for just a minute. Sound therapy and music therapy is getting more support empirically as helping in the treatment of anxiety and depression, PTSD. Even it's very helpful with children who suffer from autism or learning difficulties, excuse me, so that they can refocus. Sometimes it's helpful when they become extremely agitated. It can calm them down, and even sort of behavioral and psychiatric disorders. The benefits of sound and music therapy is that we've seen it lowers stress. So either listening to music or playing music can help lower your blood pressure, can lower your stress. It can help you put you in a better mood. Think about some of your favorite songs. Think about what it's like when you hear just whatever that favorite song is, what that does to you physically and mentally. And now that we're doing more brain imaging type of research, we see that it's affecting the reward centers of your brain. Dopamine is released in your brain when you hear that really great part of a song that you like. Dopamine is released. So it's which is a euphoric type of neurotransmitter. So you can have increased pleasant feelings when you listen to music. Your sleep can improve. So I brought some things to share with you that are really they're really inexpensive, but they're things that you may just want to bring in your office. These are like office-friendly healing instruments that are not, they're not too loud. If you shut your door, I mean, it's not gonna, none of them, you need an amplifier for it. And I asked my daughter, because she's got some songs that she's learned on some of these. I asked her if she could play them. But can you come over here, Lily, just for a minute?
Sure thing.
This is a kalimba. It's also known as a finger piano. So it looks like
you pluck it.
Yeah, it just looks like this. You keep it on your desk. It has a beautiful sound. It's all tuned. But yeah, I'll let Lily play a song here.
So you just pluck it. I got a Song of Storms. Where
This is nice. You guys just come in your office and it's already tuned. All the kalimbas are already perfectly tuned, so you can't make a mistake. Everything sounds like a chime. Thank you, Lily. Yeah, so you can't hit a wrong note, but they're just very nice just to hear it sometimes and let that sound stay with you. Another one is a rain stick. Yeah, if you don't want to hear the sounds, just listen to the rain. Have one of these. Any of these can just stay in your office just to kind of recenter you or refocus you. Another instrument that's tuned that you cannot make a mistake on is these they're like little steel tongue drums. And you can just hit them with a mallet. It also sounds like wind chimes, but it's just if you meditate or if you practice yoga, you may have seen these in some of the the different yoga centers. But again, it's to focus on that sound, just hit it anywhere and let it ring and try to stay in that moment and away from the stress. So there are other instruments too. There are like the little singing bowls that just make a nice tone. Smaller harps, there's a lot of things, ocarinas, small chimes or bells. All of these can be very helpful in recentering you, and they can be kept in your office. So one of the last things I want to talk about too that is so important is that we show how much we all mean to each other. Recognizing all that we're doing for each other. We are a work family. So sometimes just sending a thank you email, just to say thanks, is a nice gesture. It makes you feel warm. My husband, he works at UK, and they send high fives to each other. They've got this system, and other people will know. They'll like Ray sends Vince a high five, and it's just a nice way of saying that I appreciate you. Sending emails of encouragement can be nice. Or maybe we could do something with our meetings and we build recognition into it. Maybe there's a way we could do that, and maybe at the beginning of meetings, just recognize different people for different things. And it doesn't have to be something phenomenal. It can just be a kindness that's been shown or something that you saw someone do. So there's a lot of other things we could do too to virtually connect. And I thought of some of these ideas over the summer. I was part of a virtual tea time, and different people different faculty or staff were asked to be a part of that once a week. And it was really nice. It was a podcast that Tracy Spots had organized. It was really, really nice. Another idea I saw was a virtual kitchen where employees show how they make different foods, and you just set it up like once a month. There's a virtual kitchen, and somebody is going to be the chef, that Gordon Ramsay, and anyone who wants to tune in gets to learn how to make a new dish. Virtual happy hours, virtual trivia nights. There's all types of things like this to kind of build that connection, which is so important right now. So another thing that is very, very important, especially definitely for helping professionals and for teachers, we give a lot. So be very careful that you don't develop compassion fatigue. Sometimes we can get to the point where it's like, I don't think I have any more to be compassionate. I don't have enough energy. If you start feeling that way, be very careful. Maybe try to seek help if you have someone who's a friend that you could talk to, or if you want to talk to a mental health professional, because we don't want you to burn out. And burnout follows compassion fatigue. So there are certain things that you can do to minimize developing compassion fatigue. Like try to minimize when you bring work home. Try to minimize it. Have some days maybe when you don't, and some evenings. If you can, have a block of time where you don't answer emails, just so you can have some of the mindfulness and me time, right? Take breaks. Surround yourself with positive people, positive energy, or positive things to do. Get lots of sleep. And one thing too is, if, even before you leave work, try to maybe do something positive. It's a nice way to end the day, something positive, and then leave, so that it's not like carrying out any worries that you have. It's a whole new, when you leave, you're in a positive mood. So you can even do that after class or before class. Focus on joy, positivity, and hope. There's some checking in questions you can ask yourself, like, what one thing brings me joy? And just do some of these. This is a way of checking in. What's something I'm really proud of that I'd like to share with other people? Or what I like best about this weekend. And I have students do this, this positivity journal. So this is another way to just say, let's focus on some of the positive things, because often we definitely can tell you all the things that are going wrong, but things that are going right are just as important, if not more important. And we sometimes have this idea that, well, they're just givens. They're not just givens. They're things to be grateful for. So positivity journal kind of pulls that into focus. And the other thing, just for fun, throughout the day, how would you rate yourself with an emoji? This can be fun too, right? And it's not as stressful as thinking I'm sad or I'm angry. Well, let me tell you, how would I see that in an emoji? And maybe it can distance me just enough so that I have a little clarity and I don't get too overwhelmed. Okay. And that is it for the presentation. So I thank you all. It's really nice to be able to present this. I've had a lot of information I've wanted to share. And so thank you for being here. And if anyone has any questions, we've got a little bit of time.
I just want to say thank you so much. That was awesome. And I think you could tell from my chat, there's a lot of things that you said that hits home with me, raising 19 and 20-year-old daughters in a time of COVID. And I could read some of, like, I don't want to call them symptoms, but identifiers. And I'm like, yeah, we did that.
Oh, good.
We went through that too. But
and I haven't been able to see the chat while I was going through. I looked through this and let's see some of that's fantastic. Oh, you like the kitty pig, Becky?
Oh, you know I do.
I did too. It just pulled me right into that moment. It's perfect for mindfulness. And you said that your mom did. Which technique did you say that your mom did, Ellen?
The release, like when you're little and you can't go to sleep or you don't really want to, you go back out and you say, Mommy, I can't go to sleep. My mom is a nurse. She'd like, come on back here. And we'd start at the toes and I fell asleep.
Nice.
That was what, go back to bed, Ellen. That was that strategy.
That's nice. Did it work?
I guess so, because I don't really remember making it much past my legs.
It's really nice once you get that parasympathetic nervous system going. It's so calming. Yeah. It's just great.
I also could identify with a lot of the breathing techniques, being a competitive swimmer and trying not to get amped up before you swim. You have to use a lot of those same strategies. So thank you so much for sharing. Tanya has asked, what was that drum called again?
The drum is a steel tongue drum. You could get them on Amazon. I mean, they're really, really nice. It was perfectly tuned. And there's 2 mallets that come with it, but like if I wanted to, you can play anything together because it's all in the key of C. So like I said, you can't really hit any wrong notes, but like together you can, and even through the day, whatever you want to do, it's just nice. It's a nice ringing tone, but it's a steel tongue drum, and it's I guess it's like sort of like steel drums. But it's a little different. And And the kalimba is just so nice. It's like having a wind chime in here.
And the
Great.
other thing I do want to tell everybody, I think I kind of alluded to this at the beginning, and it was one of your slides. I am going to get together a virtual happy hour for our faculty. That's already in the works, and I want to kind of design it so that we share and share good things that are happening in our classes. In addition to, I want to get that freaking trivia game to work. So that's going to be going to be where I'm going to do it the right way. So look for that. I like the idea of the virtual kitchen though. Like that whole slide just added a whole bunch of little projects I'm going to be working on.
It could really be fun. I think it would be great to to learn different new recipes and it's just, tips, cooking tips, always fun.
But maybe not Gordon Ramsay style. That's a little stressful to me.
We did that with my Girl Scout troop. So we've been trying to, maintain connections virtually, and we baked cookies together last week, all through Zoom, and they really had a good time, and we're enjoying that connection. So yeah, it really is a nice thing to do.
Barry, you'll have to do cake decorating.
Not a superpower.
Yeah. It would be nice. Yeah, because that's a real skill. It's very hard. I always get too much icing or something.
Well, I took classes and learned to make my wedding cake. Many so I did my own, and then I've done all of my siblings' wedding cakes and a few others, and my kids have reaped the benefits out of that.
I would love to learn.
I would too.
Oh, that would be
I didn't take a class. I did make my own wedding cake, but I was a YouTuber graduate.
Yeah, but there's some things. I know that in my own family, my mom and my brother have this thing of getting together on Zoom to watch a really bad movie together, and it's always fun.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's just something fun. And we were trying to think of the same thing, like, should we do trivia or different things with that? How about watching really bad movies and laughing together at it? And so it does feel good.
I don't think she's on here, but Sue Lasky does that with one of her nephews. I think they synchronize their phones so that they can watch the movies together and comment. So that's
Gina, Banu and I watch BattleBots together. She got me hooked on it before she went back to Turkey, and she can't access it over there. So I tape it, and so then I just bring her in with Zoom, and we watch BattleBots together.
That's fun. That's great.
That's awesome.
Because you know what? One thing to think about is 5 years from now, it's those type of things that you're going to remember that were so much fun. They're so precious. I mean, when we look, when we go in the future, it's these really special things that we wouldn't have done before.
That's right.
That's right. That's nice. Yeah.
And I just want to thank you, Gina, for giving us permission to indulge in these self-care activities, because I will do them. I love to do a lot of this stuff, but then I feel guilty that I'm focusing on myself, and I need to reframe, as you say, my way of thinking about self-care being essential, and it needs to come first in order for us to then be able to help other people. So thank you for underscoring that for me.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. And and the thing is too that we're getting more and more evidence that supports it. So it's not, sometimes people say, well, this is maybe that's what it works for you or whatever. It's like, no, this it's very effective. So take care of yourself first, and that's not being selfish. That's actually can be very, very compassionate. Right. You're in tip-top shape then to help others. So
That's
well, you're very welcome.
I was thinking about that self-care from kind of not a different perspective, but another reason that's made it so hard for us to feel that way is for a very long time, we didn't have to get up, get ready. You know, we just, so the sweatpants thing, and like, even though that's not taking time for ourselves and being mindful, that's still putting on clothes and being more human, where you are more mindful than as opposed to my uniform. That's what I call it.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Be more authentic. Yeah.
Just the act of putting yourself together, you know, taking a shower. And I always brushed my teeth through the pandemic. Please don't worry. But there was an act of, you know, letting yourself go because it didn't matter as much. And I think that kind of aided and abetted the whole I don't care problem.
It's okay for a while, but then I guess,
And one day I'm going to get a haircut. I had one in the last year, but that'll also be a self-care expedition.
It is.
Well, thank you so much. I have enjoyed just even being with you all. And Gina, I feel good. I feel good.
There you go.
And I am joyful that COVID has brought these opportunities for us to be together.
Yes, I know. It's true. Well, thank you all for being here. It's fantastic. If you want anything, like if you have any questions, just send me an email or something too. You know, just if you want any of these instrument names or whatever, I would be happy to share them. So yeah, you can come in here and play if you want.
We all take care and keep your eye out for some happy times coming ahead. Okay.
All right. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.